Homeward brings us to Season 7 and the introduction and exit of a relative, as was so common this season. I mean, yeah, he was previously mentioned, but that doesn't mean much. I mean, we all pretty much assumed Geordi had a mom and didn't hatch from an egg or something. Anyway, it's Worf's turn, as I just implied. We're meeting with the biological son of his adoptive parents, Nikolai. He's been studying the people on a pre-warp planet, but there's a problem. The atmosphere is dispersing rapidly. Basically, there's going to be no air at all left on the planet, and so everything's going to asphyxiate. So, he's called in the Enterprise, and yes, the planet's got about 38 hours left, and then all life will die. So, not much more that they'll be able to watch there. There are these kinds of plasma bursts going on from the process, and it's knocking the Enterprise around a bit, and it's going to have some minor effects on their systems. And of course, it makes scanning more difficult than usual. This means that Worf can't find his brother on instruments, but eventually he does pick up a sign of a deflector shield in some caves. Picard says, "Okay, Worf, you can go down there and look into this, but I want you to go alone and minimize the risk of being found out by the locals. I mean, they're already dying. There's no sense in us confusing them right before they snuff it." Worf needs to be surgically altered to pass for one of the locals, Boralan. And during that, Crusher coaxes him into talking about Nikolai. That he's a bit of a maverick. Couldn't make it through the academy because he doesn't like the rules. But he's also a brilliant man and a natural leader. And seems he has put that to good use, because when Worf arrives, Nikolai seems to be running this show among the Boralan survivors.
Nikolai, what have you done?
They were dying. I refused to sit there safe in that observation post and watch it happen.
Yep, this is a Prime Directive episode. Let's revisit that a moment. The purpose of the Prime Directive's policy of non-interference, when it comes to pre-warp civilizations anyway, is to allow their culture to unfold without manipulation or exploitation. Let them make their own choices and mistakes and grow without imposing our values on them or using them to further our own ends. And that is very laudable. I want to be very clear about that. A society makes its own decisions and finds its own ways and earns its own victories to meet and overcome adversity. All of that's a noble sentiment, that a people have charted their own way. As such, we do not interfere with their culture's natural development, even if it's something heartbreaking like war or an oppressive government. Stepping in will as likely as not make that matter worse. That is a problem that they must solve themselves. But where you've seen me butting heads with this as well, episodes like this one. So to settle this, I am going to probably rant quite a bit, but I'm going to compensate that by showing you film legend Paul Sorvino, who plays Nikolai in this episode, in one of his most landmark films, I think you'll all agree, Larry Cohen's 1985 film, The Stuff.
It'd be an honor, Colonel.
Well, I know, that's why I asked you. And after this mission, you can reward me in a suitable fashion.
Oh, Colonel, I think you're moving in on my lady.
Well, I wouldn't worry about that, son. You'll probably be a casualty.
Nikolai tells the people that he and Worf are going to collect some provisions, because Worf is a seer and can guide the two of them safely. Now, this is cover so the two of them can actually head up to the Enterprise, because obviously this is not a tenable solution to their problem. Well, Picard is most displeased, and this starts in an understandable place. It's not as if the Enterprise could do anything about the atmospheric dispersal that's taking place. This is just beyond their capabilities. But Nikolai actually has a plan for them. True, they can't save the whole planet, but they could set up a shielded region on the planet and disguise the equipment so that it cannot be discovered by the Boralans, which would allow them to continue to grow and develop instead of just dying out. It's not saving everybody, it's really just saving one village, but one village is better than nothing. Well, Picard disagrees. Intervening like that violates the Prime Directive. Nikolai points to the spirit of it, only for Troy to shoot that down.
And isn't that what the Prime Directive was truly intended to do? To allow cultures to survive and grow naturally?
Not exactly. The Prime Directive was designed to ensure non-interference.
No. He said what it intended to do. What you have said is what it does. That's his whole point. He is saying the policy exists to serve an end. You are saying the policy itself is the end. The rule exists for the sake of the rule and not for any other. I may seem to be going off on semantics, but that's only because they're trying to dismiss his point on the grounds of a technicality, and even their technicality doesn't work. Let me revisit what I said in Jurassic Park. Unless you believe in a higher power, God, nature, whatever, then there is no virtue in extinction from catastrophic events. They were not selected for extinction. This is not some grand plan. Reality decided on a freak occurrence to flip over the table. When the Permian gave way to the Triassic, it was because of endless acid rain that killed off most life on this planet. It was nothing about balance and the beauty of nature. It was the heavens opening and saying, screw you to life on Earth. If sapient beings are out there facing a catastrophic event that will wipe them out, then it's a moral failure to do nothing, as surely as it would be to see a drowning person and refuse to throw them a rope. Do not preach to me about the death penalty being wrong, and then just sit there while a preventable extinction takes place. When a single death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic was said, it was not meant to define Federation policy.
What is this, World War III?
Just get us to 4th and Main right away. No more of your liberal remarks.
Picard refuses to take any action to save any of these people, not even one village, thus allowing Nikolai to remotely copy all of his data on the Baralan people, since that is the only way they will ever be remembered, as an encyclopedia entry that no one will likely ever read.
This is one of those times when we must face the ramifications of the Prime Directive and honor those lives which we cannot save.
No. Again. See, can implies a lack of ability. I cannot fly. I cannot deadlift 1,000 pounds. You can do something. You are choosing not to do something. What is the reason for that choice? If the sole reason is that it's against a rule, then that's a bad rule. You certainly have the right to die for your belief, but you have no right to make others die for your belief, not if you claim that you value the sanctity of life anyway. I mean, indeed, think about that. We watch a world full of intelligent life die and could save some, but we choose not to. Once we have done that, where does it possibly leave any room to take a moral stand on any other issue? If you are willing to allow an entire world full of living, breathing, intelligent beings to die out, what could you possibly have to say about anything else that's worthwhile? Oh, look at that. Experimenting on animals? That's just wrong. Let me tell you all about it while I watch this mother holding her dying children as her civilization is snuffed out. Oh, look at this planet with their messed up healthcare system. Why, it allows some people to die needlessly. Why can't they be as advanced as us and develop a system where all people can die needlessly? Let's get some efficiency around here, goddammit. We don't interfere because we don't interfere. That's a society run by bureaucrats and cowards.
Pay the drivers. Issue a 10% tip. Get a cash receipt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Proceed to the main lobby. We will reassemble.
So not long after that, there's a short at one of the bridge stations, a power drain. Worf goes down to Deck 10 to track it down, and it's the holodeck. Well, he can't get in, but that's all right. Nikolai lets him in order to show what he's done. He's beamed those villagers up into a recreation of the caves. It seems that this was actually his plan all along. I mean, he did give Picard another option first, trying to be reasonable, but he knew in the end that he was going to have to resort to this unless he wanted to watch everybody die.
You never had any intention of obeying the captain.
I wasn't going to let those people die just because your captain started quoting Federation dogma to me.
Your duty was to respect the captain's orders.
I'm really trying not to go off again, so I'll just say, 99 times out of 100, what Worf said is probably right. But this is the 100th time, when it is life or death, here and now. That is no longer the time to say, well, guess Cap's in charge, what can you do? Well, Picard is irate, so Nikolai lays out phase 2 of the plan. We find a new planet to settle them on, uninhabited by intelligent beings, and it's a place where they could survive and thrive. And what we'll do is inside of the holodeck, we'll just take them on a journey, gradually altering the terrain to match the new planet so that when they get there and they're all beamed down, they'll be none the wiser.
What if it doesn't work? What if they become aware that something strange is going on?
Then they'll have to deal with it. If they think something hinky is still going on, it's still better than being dead. People see weird things all the time and go on with their lives. Why? Because we're trying to survive, and you can be damn sure that that is going to be something to be predominant on the minds of these people, considering they're starting over with less than nothing after a great storm has forced their migration. So yeah, Picard's not helping himself here. He keeps getting so huffy about this, like it'd be the end of the world if they learned something we don't want them to, when these people are literally escaping the end of the world. I mean, this episode is really not kind to Picard when you get right down to it. He is supposed to be some kind of a compassionate man, but he seems more bothered by the idea of these people having a slight change to their culture than to the idea that they could all be dead. What's wrong with you? How do you not come across like some kind of a self-centered nut? Could you imagine us being responsible for some culture out there somewhere that has been slightly altered? Damn it! Why couldn't they have just been dead and made my life easier? Well, there are problems. The damage to the ship from the atmospheric dissipation is messing with the holodeck controls, but, and this is a real shocker, not causing the safety systems to stop working. I mean, really, we were all expecting Stephen Hawking to escape Data's poker program and start murdering them.
I didn't know I could do that.
Well, believe it or not, there is a simple solution to this. However, that simple solution is exactly what you might expect it to be. Have you tried turning it off and on? Well, the problem is if they did that, the holodeck takes hours to, sort that all out. I'm not sure what's all involved. Maybe you gotta warm up the tubes or something. Anyway, we can't just have these people fall asleep with knockout gas because... So anyway, that means that we're just going to have to keep the thing up and running and hope that the problems don't become so obvious that the people wonder what's going on. In fact, while they're in there trying to explain to people that there is going to be this long journey, they start to notice something weird in the water. The holodeck grid is appearing. Worf is able to cover it by claiming that it's a good omen, and we better hope that it is, because Data and Dr. Crusher are hashing out which of the two planets is the best option to settle the Boralans on, and neither one's an awesome choice. I mean, don't get me wrong, one of them is really great. It's going to be like a paradise. It's just that it happens to be near the Cardassian border. So as you can imagine, this is not an attractive option. It's like saying, wow, this is an absolutely gorgeous island under the control of North Korea. The other option is a place that's going to be very safe. It's just that it's not a nice place to live, especially compared to their previous planet. But what can you do? There's only two choices left, and Better to have a little bit of discomfort than having the Cardassians show up on your developing planet so they can build some military base or something. We all know how they like to treat the locals. Dr. Crusher takes a moment to lament the enormity of this responsibility, choosing the entire future of a species. And look, everything I've said does not mean that I don't accept the enormity of the task here. I'm not saying that this is simple and that there might not be some sleepless nights as a result. And credit to Crusher, she was the one most in favor of trying to save these people. So I know that these aren't doubts. It's just a respect for the gravity of the situation. I mean, that's realistic. They're doing something that will influence these people's entire future. But the thing to keep in mind is that thanks to this, they'll have one. During this, one of the important chronicles of the village has been misplaced. And so the guy in charge of them, Boren, goes back to get it. Except he finds the exit to the holodeck and manages to leave. Whoopsie. He stumbles into 10 forward, but Troy is there and knows how to talk to him before he has a panic attack. And once he's settled down, Picard tries to explain what's going on.
A chance for your culture, your people to survive and grow.
How can we grow when everything that made us who we are is gone?
What I find really hard to wrap my head around is the fact that Naren Shankar, who wrote this episode, has done TNG before, and fine. And he's gone on to do such amazing things. He's one of the main people who's making The Expanse, and yet this episode just does not showcase his abilities at all. It is so ham-fisted. It fumbles like a one-armed teenager trying to take off his first bra. I'm not sure if this had an uncredited rewrite. I don't know if there were lots of notes given that could only be satisfied by doing it, but this is just so blunt and just ridiculous. Why would he possibly say that? He knew the moment they were going to go on their journey, they were leaving all of their possessions behind. They were going to leave behind the village where they had lived, everything. He already knew that. He didn't voice any complaint about that then. Why would this suddenly change? If you have to invent a reason outside of the show to try to justify why a character would say something that otherwise doesn't make sense, then that means that there's been a failure in the story in the first place. The only possible thing I could think of is there's some unspoken tie to the very world that they lived upon. But again, that has never been alluded to at all. Look, I get that this guy got his mind blown. I'm not dismissing that. But what I am saying is that it is just so overt that this guy isn't a character. He is a tool of the storytellers to try to make clear why the decision regarding the Prime Directive made sense. It's an ad hoc attempt to justify allowing these people to die. Where even the one character who knows about it is like, how can we possibly go on? This is the moment that needs a Picard speech and would be here in any other episode that was trying to do its job. He would say that what makes you you is not your things or even your place. What makes you you is in the people. It is in your society. It is in your songs. It is in your culture. That is what makes you you. And on your new home, you will make new songs and tell new stories, and you will continue to grow and prosper. You have been given a second chance at life to allow what makes you you to reach fullest flower. All right, I probably should count that as a rant, too. Here's some more Paul Sorvino.
And they still don't like you.
They don't like me. They never have liked me. When I was a boy, I was always the biggest and toughest and strongest and smartest and best looking. See, they want to see somebody who's lily-livered and weak and spineless just like they are.
Speaking of injecting a little Paul Sorvino, seems that one of the Boralans, the one played by Penny Johnson, a.k.a. Casty Yates, is pregnant with his child. So he had a little extra incentive to save these people here. Well, naturally, Nikolai and Worf fight about this fact, too. They've been fighting about everything, really. But with the holodeck breaking down, it's really time for their endgame here. So they create a storm to drive the Borellans into their tents so that they can then beam down. Nikolai is going to stay with them once this has been resolved, but Bourne will not on account of he has committed ritual suicide. So there's a cheery note for us to end on. Well, I guess we should mention that Worf and Nikolai patched things up, I guess. So let's call that the end. Post-episode follow-up. I've thought a great deal about how to finally score this one, and I'm settling on giving it a score of 3 out of 10. The thing about Homeward is that there are some lovely performances in here. The big problem with the episode is that it's just so ham-fisted and contrived, has a few moments of character assassination, and most damning of all, the idea that these people dying for the sake of Federation ideals is somehow not a bad thing. There's a profound difference between the white man's burden idea of colonialism and the simple thought that, in a case of imminent death, I'll lend a helping hand to someone who's in need. If someone is falling off a building, I won't just let them fall, I'll try to help them, regardless of whether or not they're going to wind up doing something bad down the line somewhere. If that sounds like I'm playing God, well, so be it.
The Bible tells us that God knows the falling of a sparrow and the depth of a pocket, and that is what I'm talking about. Amen.
All hail